Hello and welcome to the Oregon Files podcast. First, our disclaimer. We are novice podcasters simply for entertainment and maybe a little knowledge. If we misquote or offend, it was not on purpose to do so. Now, today we're recording back from our comfortable attic space at my house, so I do apologize if you hear any dogs, neighbors, cars revving up, chainsaws for people who run chainsaws 24/7 in my neighborhood. And yeah, today we have a very interesting topic. First, my co-host, Elliot Bowman.
Thank you. I thought you were going to say cutting down their own Christmas trees.
It could happen around here. There's a lot of, I have a lot of weird neighbors.
Right.
A lot of weird neighbors.
And you got pretty good scenic with the trees.
Yeah, I'll just cut down my own tree.
Yeah.
Just bring it in the house.
That's right.
What a ritual.
All right. Thank you, Mark. And hope everyone is having a great December as we roll into the next phase of our holiday season. I like to say Happy Hanukkah to myself and to my friends and family.
Yes.
And to the Jewish brethren around the world. Happy Hanukkah and happy holidays to everyone.
Happy Hanukkah, El.
Thank you, sir. And also hello to our friends at Touchai Brewery. If you haven't been to Touchai, they are here in Roseburg. They also are over in Reedsport, which is along the Oregon coast. They own the Bandon Brewery and Pizza Company. If you're ever in Bandon, stop in for a bite to eat, good beer. Even this time of year, I really love how they put out like those heated lanterns. They also have like heated mounts along like their little gazebo area to keep you warm if you want to sit outside and have some drinks and food and stuff. Best place to find out what's going on in Touchai is they keep their Instagram page pretty up to date. So if you go to Instagram, check out Touchai Brewery and stop on by for some food and beverages. I also wanted to mention on our own Instagram account, there's a link. It's called Buy Me a Coffee. Basically, it supports our podcast here. It's super easy. You go out there, you put in your email. You don't have to give much information. It's basically email, debit card, credit card, whatever, and it goes right to Mark and I's funding to keep the podcast going. We would really appreciate your support. We appreciate everyone listening throughout the years, and we've had a good 2023. Talked to a lot of great people. In the last episode, we said it was going to be the last episode of the year, but we thought we squeeze in one more. Why not?
We had to do it.
Yeah. So today we're going to be talking about a really kind of interesting topic. I'm not going to spoil too much, but I'll let Mark take it away with the beginning of our stories.
Big topic. All right.
It's a pretty giant topic.
Yeah, pretty giant topic. But first, our other wonderful sponsor, Video Games Plus and Level Up Frozen Yogurt. They're open 7 days a week off Stevens in Roseburg, Oregon. Level Up Frozen Yogurt has new flavors every month, some dairy-free, and over 50 toppings, including fresh fruit. Also, go and look at their video games, DVDs, Blu-rays, disc golf, shirts, board games. You name it, they have something really cool. They have some pinball machines now if you just want to hang out and play some pinball. Really cool people who work there, really great place, great gift cards for the holidays. And don't forget, they have a sister location called Video Game Headquarters in Springfield, Oregon. So if you're in Eugene, Springfield area, Video Game Headquarters, let them know you heard it off the Oregon Files podcast. They'll say, what is that? It'll be awkward. Awkward contact, but that's
Silence.
the way we roll. So, right? But anyways, yeah, Video Games Plus, Love Up Frozen Yogurt. And yes, the most feedback I got on the last podcast, because we did like a holiday theme, was the controversy around the movies.
Yeah.
You
can blame that on, I think it was IMDb. I think that's where I got that from. So,
man.
And it was not most popular. It was the highest rated holiday movies according to IMDb.
I get it, but man,
don't shoot the messenger.
Oh man,
I think number one was like Meet Me in St. Louis, if I remember correctly.
Right, and and there was some. It was some. You know, how many people came to me and said, "Well, what about this movie?" I had so many people come and say, "You guys missed this movie." Right. I'm like, "Look, the list we got was highest rated." Right. Yeah,
it's because when you're watching TV during this time of year, it's like there's only so many movies that the channels and networks focus on.
Yes,
so I totally get it.
Yeah.
And then there's, all the streaming services. And I feel like everyone this time of year usually focuses on like Elf, Home Alone,
I love Elf,
Home Alone 2, Santa Claus, National Lampoons, Christmas Story. Yeah. All right. So I get it.
Yeah, Christmas Story. I've seen it too many times.
Be mad people.
Right?
Rage your holidays.
That's too funny. All right. So yes, today's podcast is a very interesting one. We're going to talk about giants.
Not the New York Giants.
Not the New York Giants, not the San Francisco Giants,
Right.
but just was there giants on Earth at some point? And I'll be honest with you, in the research I've crossed, I bring up stories, I make notes of them, that kind of stuff, like, oh, that might be a future podcast. When we decided to do this podcast, if you would have asked me a week ago if I believed in giants, I would have said no. Straight up. In the research I've done in like the last 3 days, you want to talk about somebody going from one side of the spectrum to like fanatical crazy person about it.
You're convinced.
It's the wildest thing.
Right.
The amount of wild evidence out there,
Right.
stories, that kind of stuff, collections, historical documentation.
Right.
And I say that because think about it, we had David and Goliath. The Bible has stories.
Right.
The Book of Enoch has stories of giants on
Right.
Earth, but the Book of Enoch was removed from the Bible for the present day Bible. So the Book of Enoch's not allowed to be in there because of some of the stuff it talks about. So the more
And we're not talking about just a handful of tall people.
we're talking like races at some point.
Right.
There's
like civilizations, like villages of giants.
yes, especially in America, and that's one of the craziest twists in my research was that there is Native American tribes who had to, like, they chased them because honestly, a lot of the giants back then from the Native Americans, they said they were cannibals. And so the most evidence we have is there's a thing called Lovelock, Nevada. There's a cave. And there was a Native American story about them burning the last of these redheaded giants in this cave. They got them all in there and burned them in this cave, right? And when they went to go investigate this cave recently within the last like 70, 80 years, it's been investigated twice. Both times they found very high scorch marks. Like there was a big intense fire that was burned. Bones that were larger than what they should be. Sandals for somebody who would have been, they were like size 17 sandals. Here's where it gets, and this is the wild part.
How would they know they were cannibals?
So get this, the bone marrow was sucked out of the bones of the smaller bones that they found in the cave.
Maybe they were just,
They were catching Native Americans, these giants, and then eating the bone and eating them and then eating the bone marrow out of the bones.
Cyclops.
Isn't that okay? So now
I would imagine though, like,
talk to me. Questions, please.
I don't know. I don't know why I just imagine giants being jolly, like happy.
Like a Jolly Green Giant?
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah. I don't know why I just picture them being just like easy to get along with, but
That's amazing.
I
like,
guess
yeah.
not. If you're
Yeah.
just like a giant, then you're just like, I'm mad at everything. I'm
Yeah.
gonna smash your bones.
Right? That's what it is,
That's my
though.
impression.
All the giants. It's a good impression.
I'm gonna wreck it.
Because honestly, when America was first starting to form, they kept finding burial sites. And the Smithsonian took all the bones. And the Smithsonian doesn't acknowledge that they were giants or doesn't acknowledge that they exist. And the reason why is that the Smithsonian, at the turn of the century, took a stance and said that they would not acknowledge anything that was like a traveling group. So basically, Native Americans in America could never have met the Aztecs or the Incas or something like that. It's called isolationism. And that's what they adopted. They said the Native American tribes maybe only talked to like the one down the street. They never migrated or never talked to other tribes because they decided that would go against what the beliefs were because they wanted to believe that Indians were savages. Native Americans were savages, right? So that's what's going to lead me into this stuff. So I wanted to tie this back to Oregon. This website's called greaterancestors.com.
Okay.
And they did a really good job of going state by state and recording what giants, fossils, or crazy stories were reported per state off of newspaper articles.
Interesting.
Okay. It's interesting until it becomes weird. Okay. This is where
it doesn't make sense.
where it doesn't make sense. The one that got me the most. So skeleton with horns shipped to the Smithsonian. It's a newspaper article. That's the exact same face I made when I read it. That's the exact same face. Because I'm like, that can't be. This is from a news clipping article in the Minneapolis Journal, August 8, 1903.
And if you saw that in 1903,
What do you think?
there's no real way. You can't like hop on the internet. You can't like Google it.
You can't verify
You can't
it.
really verify and invest.
Yeah.
You have to just believe that these newspapers are actually informing you of the
Yes.
God's honest truth, right?
And that's the hard part with a lot of this stuff. Because there was a guy on, I think it was like Catalina Island, who said he found like
Sure.
800 burial mounds and all these giant skeletons. It turns out it was false.
right. There's
But
a lot
guess-
of hoaxes.
A lot of hoaxes. So those
Right.
get printed over and over. The weird part, though, is how many times the Smithsonian's involved when it's just like one goofy farmer finds something in his field,
Right.
the Smithsonian shows up within a day or two and takes it. Or
It's the Smithsonian, the black men and the
Right.
Smithsonian. I can't even say it. Smithsonian.
Smithsonian, yeah. There, and then also too, sometimes the bones would, once they were exposed to air, would crumble. Any jewels or artifacts like that were sold off.
Men in Black. That's what I was trying to
Yeah,
say.
but yes, there's the Men in Black from the Smithsonian. This newspaper article does a real good job trying to explain, like, well, sometimes humans are born with deformity, sometimes there are horns and that kind of stuff, and
Like
so-
Hellboy.
right? So there's that one article, right? But then get this. Then there's another article in Crook County, Oregon. Horned skull, huge teeth and backbone. This one was from the Bend Bulletin on April 10th, 1903. In Prineville, Oregon, April 6th, a discovery of a human skull with horns is reported from the Adkins Ranch in McKay Creek. Thomas Adkins, an assistant, delved down a pile of rock, which had evidently been piled up long ago. Several feet down, they said to have bothered a man's skeleton with huge backbone joints. The skeleton lay amid rocks, which had been built like in a rude fashion. The skull was the most interesting portion, according to the story. The teeth were wide and large, and the jawbone was very prominent. Horns projected from each side, 1.5 inches long. To
What
this day.
in the world? There, long ago, they said something like that?
Yeah, but yeah, it's under a pile of rocks. And so they're trying to move away the rocks. Also, oh, there's a giant skeleton under here with horns.
So, like, deer horns? Like, I wonder how big, like, how big horns we're talking about
This
here.
this one had a measurement for those horns. Which is wild because let's see.
And
so
they just, like, left it? They're like...
they left it on the ranch. So this is 1.5 inch long with the horns.
Well, I wouldn't be touching nothing like that.
I think it's cursed.
All right. I don't want
I think
anywhere near that. That is wild.
I'm telling you, right? Okay, so
Right, but I mean, like you said, it could be it could just be some sort of deformity, right?
yeah, it could just be
Because they could be using the word horns, but maybe it's something else.
There was Clackamas County, found a bunch of 7-foot tall skeletons. Gladstone has a lot of reports of it as well. Lake County, this one's crazy too. It just says, and my favorite part, this was published in 1878 in the Oregon City Enterprise. And so the Standard tells of the finding of the skeleton of a giant who was over 8 feet high in Lake County. Mr. Amos N. King, formerly of Portland, discovered it in a recess of the mountains on his ranch. That's all it says. That's the whole article. Okay?
Nothing else.
He just it's like he just sends a post to the newspaper, hey, I found a giant skeleton.
Yeah.
Put it in the paper.
I put it in the. I guess that's what you did, right?
That's what you did. Farmer finds graves of ancient race in Oregon. This is in the Evening Independent. J.F. Crawford, local authority on prehistoric specimens, held the theory that the skeletons were buried shortly after 500 BC because he said at about that time, a Buddhist priest visited this coast and after returning to China to get more missionaries, came back and taught the dwellers here. After this visit by the Buddhists, by mound builders. So the fact that we started building or burying certain people in the mounds that we're doing represents what was going on in another country.
What in the world? That was here in Oregon?
That was here in Oregon. These are all from Oregon. Now, I'm going to tell you about the one that's got the most proof now. You ready for this?
Yeah. Let me ask you something.
fire
Do you
away.
think,
Yeah.
in some ways related
Yeah.
to Bigfoot, do you think over time the giant civilizations that could have existed here in Oregon
Yeah.
could have evolved into having, because it
Yeah.
gets pretty
They
cold
would have had
here,
to.
somehow evolved into growing, ape-like fur?
I think there's common DNA because of
Yeah.
how much, you're right, the stature, the size, the strength. Yeah, they would have had to have splintered off from there. You know what I
Something,
mean?
right? Like a
You're not
cousin to
wrong.
him, like,
You're not wrong. The heights, you know what I mean?
right.
What's crazy is that some of the first skeletons found were actually in Ohio. They had 2 rows of teeth. And then those skeletons started popping up all in the U.S. in random places. I guess there's a lot too in San Diego. They found giant skeletons in San Diego and stuff, right? So the crazy part is the number of skeletons found. That's the part that gets me is like 1 or 2 or 3, you know what I mean? I could write that off as fake, right?
Right.
But you start getting into the thousands, you start getting into like giant maps and like all of a sudden it makes sense that they're on like certain areas.
Right.
It's a little disconcerting.
Well, when we think of the early Homo sapiens, the early Neanderthals, I don't believe they were particularly tall, right?
Yeah, that's
they were
the
like
thing, yeah.
cavemen,
Yeah.
right? They weren't. I could be wrong, but I don't think they were like 7 feet tall, living
That's
in
just it,
caves,
right?
Right.
Yeah. So that's why they.
Well, when we think of evolution, I mean that chart in my head.
yeah.
I mean, I guess.
There's an evolution where it splinters off and all of a sudden it's like there's a couple giants and a Bigfoot.
All right.
It's very interesting. I think there's a lot of
To
history
be
we
in a
don't
fly
know.
on a wall during the Those pieces of time.
Right? Though it's funny because when I go down these paths, it's weird because I'm always like, skeptical. It's kind of like, okay,
Well, I think you have to be a little skeptical.
Right? It's giant.
But then you
It's
uncover
goofy.
the truth and you unearth more evidence and facts.
Yeah.
Right.
There's so much. The greaterancestors.com, that's where I got. There are 12 different things in Oregon that were found.
Crazy.
Right? And so it's just wild how some of those came about and the similarities between them. But I'm going to tell you about one. This one here is my favorite I found because this one, for the amount of proof, is pretty wild. Have you heard of Three Rocks Bay, which is it's actually called Three? So so originally it's spelled ROX, but now it's called Three Rocks, ROCKS. So Three Rocks Bay on the Oregon coast. And the legend has there were ancient stories of a mysterious shipwreck in Three Rocks Bay, including talks of a giant who was
Always a shipwreck.
Always a shipwreck. But there was talks of a giant who was briefly known as a god by the local natives, along with tales about a ship that crashed there in the 1700s. It started in the 1700s or 1932, depending on how you think about it. It's a tale of murder, snoo, local native legends, and a skeleton of an 8-foot-tall giant, and possibly a pirate ship, a search for treasure, and a local family caught up in the middle of it. Thanks to bundles of information from the North Lincoln County Historical Museum, there's a clear record on this intriguing mystery. According to articles archived by the museum, homesteaders who settled in Lincoln City and Niskawin area had long heard legends from local tribes about a shipwreck and a mysterious black man briefly worshipped as a god. This was all the way back to the mid-1800s and just before the Calkins family started settling into the bay where the Salmon River dumps out to the sea next to the Cascade Head. The son of the family, Elmer Calkins, began laying the groundwork for his own homestead near Cascade Head in 1932. Now, the funny part is this started in 1932, but it wasn't really, and none of this came about until a 1972 article in the LA Times. As he plowed the ground in preparation for building, he ran across something quite unusual, human bones. Elmer, according to the LA Times article, had grown up with the local tribes people all around him and he knew their ways. So what made his find even more striking was that the bones were buried with discarded seashells. This was, after all, the Indians' form of a garbage dump. They did not bury their dead in garbage piles. So why was there a skeleton in technically an Indian garbage dump? Stranger still was one of the skeletons was a giant. The man, later discovered to be African, was 8 feet tall. Calkins quickly contacted historian Dr. John Horner and local coroner Dr. F.M. Carter. Historical photos from the North Lincoln County Historical Museum show the examining of the burial site. Horner took them back to Oregon State University in Corvallis and dated the skeletons to about 160 years, which would have placed them on the central Oregon coast in the late 1700s. The other 2 skeletons were of Caucasian men. Meanwhile, something immediately clicked with the local historian and with Calkins. They had heard many of tales handed down from generations. One of them was of a giant winged canoe that came into the bay next to Cascade Head, which timeline matches 160-year-old bones. The legend said the crew of the ship wandered off inland in the wreck and were never heard from again. 3 stayed behind, 2 white men and the giant African man. The Indians worshipped the black man, so the legend went, Calkins said at the time. They were in awe of the man because of his color and his size. Then the natives decided that perhaps this man was not a god and they turned against him. Children began being born to the women with distinct African features. When the Indians decided the giant was human, they killed him and his 2 shipmates and threw him in their burial dump.
So when they figured out, wait a minute, you're not actually
a god.
You're a human.
You're a human.
And you just like off them like execution style?
Because they thought they lied to him. So this guy came in pretending that he was a god and that kind of stuff, and they believed it, and so he slept with a bunch of the women. Yeah, in a show of contempt.
So he was just lying the whole time just so he can sleep with a bunch of women?
Bunch of Native American women. This guy, that's where the snoo part comes in. So in a show of contempt, the bodies were thrown into the kitchen middens, the piles of shells from seafood the tribes lived on.
How do you think they discovered, what do you think how that conversation went down?
How long did it take too? Finally they're like, I don't
who was skeptical first?
Someone's like, can you do some cool, can you throw a lightning bolt or something?
Can you do something cool?
Do something cool.
What's your special power? Wait a minute. Can you fire from your hand?
Exactly. Yeah. Can you
levitate?
Hey, my kid's sick. Can you make him better? I'm not that kind of god.
Yeah. Now look, I can't pay my rent this month. Can you make money grow on that tree over there? I can't. You're not a god. Kill him.
No, yeah. Calkins
And
also
you slept with my wife?
exactly
Sir.
slept with everyone's wife apparently. So Calkins also noted that many of the local tribes people he grew up with around that turn of the century had some African features, including
Oh my
such
God.
as dark.
It's the Wilt Chamberlain of.
Exactly right.
Oh man, of the 1700s.
So interestingly enough, this wasn't Calkins' first encounter with the real life evidence of the legend. Years before, while digging for gold in that bay, Calkins also was responsible for getting the bay named Three Rocks Bay. He snagged part of a rib in a sunken ship. That discovery created a small media sensation in the 1920s, and Calkins told the LA Times people flooded the area to dig up what they thought was a pirate's treasure. In 1974, 2 years after the LA Times article, Salem's newspaper, the Capital Journal, ran a story about Calkins' son, Ed Calkins. The younger Calkins was about to embark on something that sounds like a subplot in the new series, The Curse of Oak Island. He, too, was caught up in the treasure fever and in 1974 applied for a dig permit from the state of Oregon. In that article, the young Calkins said he believed the ship to be a pirate ship that tried to hide in the area running from the British. It also noted how Calkins had apparently detected gold and silver with a metal detector around where the wreckage would be. The article said one of the skulls of the human's remains were still pierced with an arrowhead, with
geez.
another man apparently had his head crushed with a rock.
Oh my gosh. There's violence all over the place.
Right? So it's just kind of, it's a crazy story though, because this one here, you have, there's evidence, right? And there's almost, you can almost get DNA evidence to this point.
All right.
But this was a false identification though. The guy was a giant to them. Took place, is that crazy? That's a true story. It took place in Oregon.
Right. And like, do you think that they asked him at first, like, hey, are you a god? And he's like, yeah, I kind of am. I'm a god to women.
So that's
like,
exactly
oh,
it.
okay,
That's
that makes-
exactly. This guy's a
Right.
playboy.
Right. Somebody got jealous. That's what I think.
Somebody
got jealous.
Yeah, something happened.
He was probably in his sleep. He was like a little harem of women.
Oh yeah. Oh.
And then boom, arrow to the forehead.
Another story I found is a Salem skull that was 25 inches circumference. This was in the Salem, Oregon newspaper. 2 mail carriers found it and brought all these people to come see what they found. The 2 amateur anthropologists nearby, Roy Staltzman and Willis McGrath, made the excavation on the farm of John Malmsbury. After examining the mound, Richard D. Morgan, state archaeologist, discovered that the work of the 2 Alliance men was the most important archaeological discovery in this section of the state in recent years. Morgan said that the remains were those of Hopewell Indians who supposedly migrated to America across the Bering Strait long before the white man. They estimated that the age of the finds was more than 2,000 years old. One skeleton uncovered was that of a man, apparently a chief, estimated to have been nearly 7 feet tall, whose skull was 25 inches in circumference.
Dang.
Other findings included flint arrows, the stones of 3 sacrificial altars, spearheads, knives, and beautifully wrought objects of copper. Pendleton, Oregon, there's a petrified giant's foot. And then let's get it real close to Roseburg here. I have one that's local. This one was my favorite, actually. I kind of laughed when I read this one. I had to read it twice. This was in the Evening Statesman, March 25th in 1904. It's called Wild Man in Western Oregon, Roseburg, Oregon, March 25th. A wild man reported in the mountains of the Coos Bay country is described as 7 feet tall, muscular, and unkempt. He has been terrorizing ranchers and miners until today. They are discussing and organizing a hunt.
Oh boy.
He's been shot at twice without effect. He's believed to have been an insane prospector of a gigantic stature.
An insane prospector.
That's the entire article. That's the entire. You don't know if
There's no follow-up.
There's no follow up. You don't know if they actually did form the
They
posse.
got pitchforks and their shotguns.
It's just crazy. Yeah,
It leaves for a lot of imagination.
it really does. Yeah. There's just a lot of evidence, and that's the part that's hard for me.
There's all over. It's more than just the United States. There's so much evidence around the world too.
Yes.
It's crazy. Which takes me to
Do it.
the Sardinia Island. Now, when I hear Sardinia, I think of sardines.
That's what I do too. Yeah.
I didn't read anything about sardines, but I read about this island. It's called Sardinia Island. It's the second largest island in the Mediterranean Sea after Sicily. And it's one of the 20 regions of Italy. It's actually located west of the Italian peninsula. It's north of Tanzania and the immediately south of the French island of Corsica. So Sardinia has actually been inhabited by humans since the end of the Paleolithic era, which is about 20 to 10,000 years ago. The island's most notable civilization is the indigenous Nuragic, 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 which flourished from the 18th century BC to either 238 BC or the 2nd century AD in some parts of the island, and to the 6th century AD in part of the island known as Barbagia. I am so good with pronouncing these words. It's amazing.
I love it.
This info I found a lot on National Geographic. So what happens was, and by chance in 1974, again, plowing the fields here.
Yeah.
So during the plowing of the fields near Cabris, which is central coast of Sardinia, they discovered over 5,000 fragments were found in the field. This was resulted from painstakingly careful and lengthy reconstruction work. So I'm going to explain this a little bit here. They found 16 statues of boxers, 6 archers, and 6 warriors. It is an army of about 28 colossal statues, which reached up to, so the statues were up to 8 feet and weighed about 881 pounds.
Whoa.
So the boxers were most numerous category found to date. They were bare-chested and thick-set. Each held a shield over its head. Archaeologists have gleaned from fragments that also once held a ritual combat glove in their hand. The 2 faces have 2 consecrated circles for their eyes. Historians theorize that their figures were the fighter athletes who may have played a religious or even a priestly role. The archers are represented with the right arm raised in a salute and the left arm encased in a glove,
Weird.
holding a bow that rests on their shoulder. No well-preserved heads of the archers have been found yet, so scholars believe they share the same facial features as the warriors. The few warriors that have been found so far are in poor condition. Their helmets bear a crest in the center and 2 horns on top. So when we're talking about the giants we're finding here in the United States, we're talking about these.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
That's wild.
And when they were first carved, they were all likely circular shields. So this island here in Italy, they found these statues that are replicating people that whoever inhabited these islands are basically, because during those time periods, there's no way to really write down or the best way for them to express themselves is cave drawings or making carvings and stuff like that. So it's like these inhabitants of this island that they're seeing this, or that they're part of these villages, they're making statues of them.
Wild.
Okay. So the statues were carved in local sandstone and they date back about 3,000 years ago. What makes them more particular, in addition to their size, is the precision dedicated to their geometric details. The eyes, for example, are made up of perfect circles. This is also another aspect that give the statues an alien look and that fuels the theories about ancient astronauts, aliens.
I don't like it.
What is certain that the giants of the region of Sardinia Island was called Monte Prama are surrounded by an aura of a legend since their discovery, as they belong to the mysterious Nuragic civilization. And there's not a whole lot known about this civilization. The Nuragic people, they carved these figures, and how they arrange at the site still kind of puzzles experts even 3,000 years later. They argue that the figures stand for categories of the Nuragic military, priestly elite, who are perhaps lying buried at the necropolis. Other hypotheses is that the statues are meant to represent historic figures from the past, perhaps those who have built the massive structures. According to theory, the sculptures would have been arranged as a heroon, which is a Greek term meaning a temple or a monument dedicated to heroes or a hero. Placed near the necropolis, these ancestor heroes would have been a reminder of traditional values and shared heritage that bound the island community together. Even today, Sardinians strongly identify with such symbols of their ancient past. The faces of the giants have become so well known and celebrated that for many they have come to replace the buildings themselves as the symbol of the island's ancient past.
That's wild.
And then there's also what they call on the island, it's called the Tomb of the Giants. So they found these giant tombs, and they have these burial chambers that are actually in between 65 and 98 feet long. And up to about 6.5 feet to about 9.5 feet tall. The front part is kind of a semicircle of vertical stones planted in the ground. A taller stele is often placed in the center, in some cases reached out to about 13 feet tall. The considerable size has helped to fuel myths and legends. Popular imaginations believe that they were graves for men of colossal stature who lived on the island in the past. Others claim that the huge bones have been found inside the graves. Others still link them back to the tombstones of the legendary Atlantis.
It was just in that area. Yeah. That's wild.
Which is kind of interesting. According to archaeologists, in reality, the dimensions of the tombs of the giants were due to the fact that there was actually collective tombs capable of containing several dozen, if not hundreds, of burials. And then the last bit of this is some of the bones that were recovered. According to various inhabitants of this village, it's called Poly Arabi. I am sure that's close. There is a painter and sculptor of his time. His name is Luigi Muscus. He found very large bones in the countryside surrounding their village. Some claim that belonged to men up to 13 feet tall. Muscus himself found the remains of a giant skeleton in a cave in 1972 when he was a child.
What?
Allegedly, he was not the only one. Interviewed several times by journalists, many locals explained that the skeletons were shown to the authorities or the experts when they were found, and almost always disappeared into thin air the next day.
It's so weird to say. Why cover that up? You know what I mean?
That's kind of wild.
What a crazy
and what
story.
Authorities?
That's just it.
What authorities are getting flown in to scoop those bones up and make sure that they're never taught, or maybe they're doing their own research and they don't want to tell locals that there's actually evidence of. Maybe they don't want to confirm what they already believe. But kind of interesting. Even in Italy, that's being
wild.
Covered up. So
and it's so weird that you talked about the horns too. That
right,
I'm not
that was
okay
so
with that.
fascinating.
I'm not okay with that.
You talk about the horns found in Oregon here, and then they found the horns, even though it wasn't the bodies, but still the way they're obviously seeing something like that and making sculptures of it, because that's the way they express themselves, painting sculptures. You know, I mean, they're not writing it down in books. You know, I mean, that's how they're leaving it for. And I wonder, do those sculptures and paintings because they know thousands of years will go by and somebody will find these.
Wouldn't it be funny if, like, 1,000 years from now, the only thing they find of our civilization is like a Spider-Man action figure, and they think we all look like Spider-Man or something like that because it's the only piece of plastic that made it.
That's a funny That's a funny topic. Yeah, what would they find to think like?
Right. Yeah.
This is what civilization was.
This was like on planet Earth 1,000 years ago. They all look like Spider-Man.
McDonald's wrappers.
Right. Yeah. some guy named Big Mac.
Right.
And they all
Ronald
worshiped
McDonald.
him. Yeah. So
man.
So it's so weird because what you talked about now, there's the three trains of thought with giants is, number one, is that the reason that they say that the bones disintegrate when they're exposed to air and that kind of stuff. So that's why it's hard to find them now. The other train of thought is that it's hoaxes.
Right.
It's all fake.
I've seen a lot of that out there. When I was looking up a lot of the hoaxes.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then the other one that gets me though is that the reason if the giant skeletons were, it contradicts, I guess, some of the books of the Bible. And so do you want to make that leap, that conspiracy theory that organized religions covering up some of these things,
The Vatican.
Yeah, it's like we can't have this story out because then it proves that, angels walked among us and, or whatever. The hard part with that, though, is you go into so many weird segues.
Right.
You know what I mean? Why is there... But the amount of that type of cover-up's huge.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Everyone says like, oh, there's cover-ups. I'm like, I don't know, man. A cover-up, you'd have to have so many people involved to cover something up and someone's going to spill.
And it's got to, and
I don't know anymore.
It starts pretty high up.
It does, right?
When I started to put the thought process together about what I wanted to talk about, what I wanted to research, giants, I think it's a pretty common thing when you think giants, you think of tall people.
Yeah.
I don't know, maybe that's just me, but I was looking at like the tallest people ever to be recorded.
Okay.
And I came across this gentleman named is Robert Wadlow, Wadlo, Robert Pershing Wadlow.
Okay.
He was born February 22nd, 1918, and he passed away July 15th, 1940. So he did not live very long.
Oh, poor guy.
He was also known as the Alton Giant and the Giant of Illinois.
Okay.
He was an American man who was the tallest person in recorded history, for whom there is irrefutable evidence. He was born and raised in Alton, Illinois, a small city near St. Louis, Missouri. He was 8 feet 11 inches. So he's almost 9 feet, this dude.
Was he a painter or like decorating?
He's a tall dude.
Yeah.
He weighed about, man, that is crazy. He weighed about 440 pounds.
That makes sense because they say something that there's a reason. There's arguments the Giants couldn't have been. They'd be the bigger a person is, the more mass. So the weight would be.
Man.
That's crazy.
He died. He was 22 when he passed away.
Oh, that's so sad.
His great size and continued growth into adulthood were due to a hypertrophy of his pituitary gland, which resulted in an abnormal high level of human growth hormone.
Okay.
So he was born in Illinois, like I said, and he was actually the oldest of 5 children. Could you imagine growing up and be like, no one's messing with me because my brother. So by the time he was by the time he was 8, he was taller than his dad.
Wow.
And then when he went to elementary school, they actually designed a special desk for him.
Aww.
By the time of his graduation in 1936, he was 8 feet 4 inches.
Amazing.
I don't know. I think basketball was probably just kicking off right around that time.
I mean, he had this potential, right?
I mean, no kidding. So by the time he reached adulthood, he actually he was required for special leg braces when walking. He had a little feeling in his legs and feet, but he never used a wheelchair.
Okay.
He ended up actually becoming a little bit of a celebrity. In 1936, he took a U.S. tour with the Ringling Brothers Circus because what else would you do in the 1930s as a celebrity?
Just sit there.
He went to Madison Square Gardens, Boston Garden, in the center ring, but he was never a sideshow. During his appearances, he dressed in everyday clothes, and he refused the circus's request that he wear a top hat and tails. So he didn't want to be. So I think he kind of knew.
Yeah.
I don't want to use the word like freak, but he kind of knew he stood out amongst men, right?
Yeah. Oh, he knew.
And so he knew his niche, but he didn't want to be like, he didn't want to almost be like made fun of, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Right? So in 1938, he began his own promotional tour with International Shoe Company, which provided him shoes free of charge. Again, only in his everyday street clothes, Waldlow saw himself as working in advertising, but not exhibiting as a freak. He possessed great physical strength until the last few days of his life. He was a Mason. He belonged to the Order of De Molay, the Masonic sponsor organization for young men, and was later a Freemason. He ended up becoming a Master Mason under the jurisdiction of the Grand Lodge of Illinois. 1 year before his death, Waldlow passed John Rogan, who was the tallest person before that time. 18 days before his death, he was measured at 8 feet 11 inches.
Wow, so, 8 feet 11. He almost got 9 feet tall.
It's crazy.
That's crazy.
His coffin, I guess, measured at 10 feet 9 inches. And was carried by 12 pallbearers and 8 assistants.
Wow.
Dang.
Wow.
Pretty wild. So there's actually a life-size statue of him was erected opposite the Alton Museum of History and Art in 1986. There you go.
That's crazy. The tallest
Robert Waldo, 8 feet 11 inches.
The tallest guy I ever met was the one and only Peter Mayhew, who was Chewbacca. I met him at Gen Con in Indianapolis before he passed away.
Yeah.
Nicest guy. But I had got a picture of like his hand next to mine.
Yeah.
I mean, he even had big hands.
Yeah. How tall was Peter Mayhew?
Peter was 7 foot 3 inches.
Oh,
I just looked it up because I was curious. But yeah, he was so nice. The nicest guy you can imagine. But when he was going on break, he had to duck down to get out the door. But no, he was
I cannot imagine being. I think Shaq's like 7'6".
I love Shaq's stories. Shaquille O'Neal's funny. Yeah, Shaq's a big guy too. Let's go back. Okay. Oh, by the way, my last article, when I first read that, a lot of that stuff about Three Rocks Bay.
Yeah.
A lot of that was from, it's called beachconnection.net, which is actually an Oregon-backed website, part of the North Lincoln County History Museum. The whole story, it's all
historical society.
It's historical society stuff. Right. So the next article I want to cover real quick is, this is a recent one. This is, I got this from the messenger.com. Offbeat Oregon. It's by Nick Gallagher, but a former Oregon Town Council member is convinced that giants are real after spotting what he claims was a massive door on a cliffside in the Cascade foothills. So James Goble, G-O-B-L-E, Gobble. I hope either way, I've now offended this real living person.
Well, for 2 years running now, we've really struggled with pronunciations of words.
I'm trying to learn Spanish right now, and it just makes it, I'm like all over the place.
I knew the moment I saw Sardinia was in Italy, I knew I was in trouble with some of those words. I was like, I'm giving my best shot at these words.
Oh,
yeah.
Every Native American tribe, I probably messed up their
So
name.
sorry.
Oh, this is why we do the disclaimer.
So sorry.
So anyways, Mr. James Gobble, former Oregon Town Council member. This is recent. This is November 14th of 2023 this came out.
Okay.
Last month. So he lives in Sweet Home, about 95 miles south of Portland, said that at one point a door opened up and a mythical creature peered out of it.
Okay.
On October 23rd, he shared a video recounting his sighting on TikTok. And there's been now more than 5 million views. The video was taken down, leaving commenters to speculate why it vanished without explanation. The main reason we went quiet, there was something in our video and a follower pointed it out to us. So I looked at it to see what they were saying. So I sent it off to some people and they asked us to keep it quiet until it came time to let somebody know. The video only got more cryptic from there. On one of the expeditions to visit the doorway, Mr. Goble claims that he passed a pair of white government trucks who may have been monitoring the area. In another video, Goble pans across the hillside to show a path carved into its face. He says that at first he assumed water had etched a path through the summit, causing natural erosion. But some commenters had more outlandish explanations, including that the giant was continuously dragging or pulling something up a cliffside, resulting in the jagged pathway. Some users remained skeptical, adding that they couldn't even determine whether Goble was trying to prove what he was trying to prove in his videos. At this point, I'm over it. I don't even know what I'm looking at. One user said in frustration. But many were quick to defend Goble, and some even shared their questionable claims. And so someone said that I have a video of a giant I filmed in Mount Rainier Cave in the evening, but TikTok won't let me post it, one commenter said. Someone said talked about secret hideaways in all the mountains for aliens. That person's,
That person's in.
It's expect your comment on a TikTok post.
What kind of door are we talking? Like an oak door? Like what kind of door are we talking? Like a window up top? Is there a ring?
Here's the crazy part is when you see the picture of it, because I saw a screenshot of it.
It's got a doorbell.
It looks like a door. I'll turn around and show it to you. And here's a picture of it.
Is it Uber accepted?
It doesn't. It could be a natural formation.
Look at this guy.
But at the same time, I don't know. It's a hard one to believe. I love the idea that at first that it opened and someone peeked out.
Yeah,
that's my favorite part of the original story.
Who peeked? Again, were they waiting for a delivery? They peeked out. They saw this guy, and
he was waiting for his DoorDash.
Exactly.
And here's some guy just walking in the park. It's a recent article, so I guess legends don't die. But anyways, that's a fun
legends don't die.
So good job.
And the legend is fact. Print the legend.
Right. Oh my gosh, that's a great quote. So anyways, that brings us
so many ways. So
there you go.
There's our giant. Believe what you want to believe.
Believe what you want to believe, but watch videos.
Right. Videos. Look up some articles.
Yeah.
The Sardinia stuff, if you check that out, the actual pictures of the statues are really kind of cool looking if you get to see those. But the paintings too. It's like, why are they painting this stuff? It's interesting. You just don't know what the future's going to hold. So that brings us to we're going to do, was it top 10 ways to survive 2024? That's right, Mark. 2024 is right around the corner. And Mark and I decided we're going to give the listeners of our podcast the best advice on ways to survive 2024. And we're good to give this advice because we survived this part in our lives. So. And not, yeah. And, we're the best people to give advice to, so yes. we're doing well. I try to give advice all the time, and it's just nothing. Yeah, it just me neither. Yeah, I give up anymore. I just so anyways, first advice, and this is one too. Just always take time to connect with nature. It's good advice, right? If you need to go outside and go naked and stand and do some grounding in the yard, go for it. That's right. It's Enjoy a good way. Nature. Don't do it in broad daylight where your neighbors can see. Yeah, you got to do that weird stuff at night. The later at night, the better. Mm-hmm. Watch out for bats. Watch out for the bats. The raccoons don't like to be scared. Deer. Right. So just ground yourself. It's a good way to survive. I just like, anytime you breathe. Go into the forest and get naked. Be with one. Yeah. Next one, I think, is prep for emergencies. 2024 could have some fun stuff. Oh, boy. We're coming in. We're not going to get too political here, but we're getting into an election year. It's hard not to. Lord help us with everything that's coming down the pike. Oh, boy. It just, prep for emergencies. Because know your neighbors, just in case, you need something from them. Hopefully we're going to never have to do a zombie apocalypse, but
But it doesn't hurt to be a little prepared,
That's
you know. Get a little radio. They say have a landline now. Okay, also coming up in 2024, the Summer Olympics are coming up. So just, you know, be prepared for that.
Right.
I'm sure that's going to be political too. What countries are there and not there?
Root for your country.
Yep.
Enjoy what's Summer Olympics? Basketball, swimming. I like to watch it and then take a look in the mirror and be like, I'm not an Olympic athlete.
Oh, yeah.
I should not try rowing or anything like that. Stick to what you know.
Right. Next, Super Bowl 2024 Super Bowl. Who do you think is going to make it to the Super Bowl, Elliot?
I wasn't ready for predictions. I'm gonna go with the Niners.
Okay.
I think Niners are going, and then I'll just go with status quo here. I think we'll go with I think the Chiefs will sneak it in there.
Are you serious? That's my exact same prediction. I want my Chiefs to get back in there.
Even though the Chiefs don't look very good, I think somehow the Chiefs are gonna sneak in there, and I think we'll have a Niners Chiefs Super Bowl, which would be a good Super Bowl.
I would be too. The Chiefs always kind of I always say they take a break about this time of year.
Maybe the Ravens. Maybe. We'll see. We'll come back to this after the Super Bowl and see.
Yeah, we'll see. Likely in 2024, there will be a shocking celebrity death.
That's true. Every year.
Every year. Who do you think it's going to be?
Shocking
celebrity death. Which one do you think?
Gosh, I don't want to kill anyone.
I know this is one of those ones that see if you're right about this.
I feel bad. I hope this doesn't come back to bite me.
Right?
But the first person that comes to my mind, if this ends up right, first person that comes to my mind, Justin Bieber.
Wow. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know why.
Yeah.
I got no reasons. And I apologize to all, what are they, Bieberites? Bieber fans?
Beaver dams.
But I don't know why that just comes to my mind.
That's you're not. That's pretty good. I don't know why.
It's shocking. Cause I'm thinking because we're not going to go like the older, like if Ozzy Osbourne passed away. Okay.
That's not
shocked?
shocking. Yeah. Shocking's got to be a younger one.
Right.
My weird prediction, and I know it's going to sound weird, but Adam Driver. That would be sad. And the reason why he always looks sad and depressed,
it's because he goes through a lot of tough marriages.
He goes through a lot of stuff, you know? So that's my weird.
He's on the dark side.
So be prepared for a shocking celebrity death. Number 6, do your taxes. You're going to have to do taxes.
You don't want to end up with the IRS and the people chasing after you to get your taxes. Just do your taxes. Not hard. Yes. Go online, do it.
Yeah,
or look for the free services.
Yes,
You want to plug in that, Mark?
You know, here's the deal. So I volunteer for a thing in Roseburg, Oregon to help a certain level, lower income people get their taxes done. And most of the time, those people do get money back. So for them, it's a big deal. It only takes like half an hour for us to do it. There's a questionnaire thing you can fill out. You're maybe an hour of your day. It's a really good process to do it. Right now, though, they're struggling to get volunteers. And it's volunteers to actually help process it. And you have to and every year I have to pass a new test. For like what updates for happen, that kind of stuff. But the reason I think it's such a big thing for 2024 is if you're a resident of Oregon, particularly, is going to be the biggest year for a kicker. So right now, which means there's a surplus in what Oregon took last year.
Right.
That means you're going to get it back when you file your taxes for this year, right? So in 2024, when you file your 2023 taxes, it's going to be your biggest kicker in the state of Oregon ever.
I'm looking forward to going to the casino.
See? So definitely file your taxes. I've learned a lot from doing the volunteer work. I tell you, teachers and police officers do not get paid near what they deserve.
Amen.
I almost think some people make more money working at Taco Bell than some teachers and policemen, and that's terrible. I mean, no dig on the Taco Bell, but they mess up every order. Anyways, slam the Taco Bell. Right? Okay, number 7. This is probably the big elephant in the room. Oh, elephant! It's the presidential election.
Yeah,
and I love that I made an elephant. Reference. That's pretty good. It's pretty good.
Don't go too crazy with the results. Let's be honest. Yeah. No matter who wins, it shouldn't affect your daily life.
Right.
Just relax.
And you'll all be shocked.
It's going to be okay.
It's going to be okay.
Right.
Not too much is going to change. Is everything to be angry about.
Life will go on.
It's going to shock everyone when Justin Bieber becomes president and then it's assassinated. That's the connection, Al. He's Canadian. He can't run.
He's Canadian?
Uh-huh.
Aye. He's Canadian. So is Martin Short. The weird thing about Martin Short recently, somebody had said something about him not being funny, and there was like a bunch of people had to defend Martin Short being funny.
Was it on the podcast? I was listening to a podcast.
I think it was like on a podcast.
It was on the Strike Force 5. They're talking about who their favorite people to interview, and they said Martin Short was one of their favorites. But there was an article that said that he wasn't funny.
Yeah,
but like if he's actually a really nice guy and really funny.
It was like article or something like that. Yeah.
They slam Martin Short.
Yeah.
I love that we got Martin Short in a giant podcast. That's pretty good too. That's pretty good, everyone.
Worked it in.
Number 8, we put this is an interesting one. Get ready to eat and digest lab-grown meat.
Yeah, it's coming.
It's coming. That's the thing.
Yeah.
It's been approved by the FDA. Walmart, I think it was going to be the first store to start carrying lab-grown meat. It's got a little sticker on it, apparently.
Yeah.
It's got a little cheaper than real meat.
What was the crave a few years ago? And now all the restaurants have it. Burger King.
Oh, is it the Impossible?
Yeah,
burger?
the Impossible food.
Yeah, it's all right. It tastes fine.
Yeah.
Eh.
See, you go from that. Now we go with the lab grown stuff.
Right.
I'm not eating any of that.
Right? That's Yeah, I definitely come more. I'm real funny when I eat. Maybe just because I'm getting older and my constitution's not what it used to be. So like, I'm really picky on what I can eat.
Yeah.
You know, like my son can still like, we can go anywhere like a restaurant. He'll pack down like 5-6 tacos.
Oh my gosh.
And I'm like, after 2, I'm winded and need a nap. You know?
All right.
So
I know. I had a burger the other day at this place, and it was one of those burgers. It was a double cheeseburger, but like inside the burgers was more cheese stuffed in the burger. And I thought I can do this. The next day ruined. Ruined. I'm like, why did I eat that? And tater tots. Why did I eat that?
I love that.
I did not need to eat that.
I love that. That's too funny.
I just had a Cobb salad.
Exactly right. Keep it simple. I do the same thing. There's certain things like, oh, look what's on the menu. I'm like, ooh,
Like I knew if the name of it was like a Juicy Lucy, and I was like, I shouldn't eat something called a Juicy Lucy.
because that's probably how it comes out. too,
Exactly.
you know?
That was not a smart
Juicy
decision.
Lucy. Yeah, I can't. Okay, I see pizza.
Just destroyed me.
I can't have pizza like I used to.
Yeah.
I'm like 2 slices max.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like that, and that's pushing it. And it can't be like too much meat on there. I can't do like a meat lover's pizza anymore.
Yeah.
I'm gonna need the Tums, you know, like
Right,
the antacid
exactly.
right away. The
Right.
Pepto's on. I just put straw in it.
All right.
That's too funny. We're just getting old. Number 9, we just we got some award shows, watch parties, predictions.
Yep.
Movies you liked or didn't like are
Yep.
going to get nominated.
Don't throw your remotes at the TV if the
Yeah.
person that you wanted to win didn't win.
It's
It's okay. They don't care about you. You shouldn't
yeah.
really put too much time and effort into celebrities, Karen.
I just want Ricky Gervais to host all the shows.
Right.
That's my. I like that.
I am looking forward to the show. I thought they were going to cancel it. Now they're back, so I'm
Yeah,
glad that
yeah.
it's back. I like
Yeah.
award shows.
I do too.
Suckers for them.
I do too. I get sucked in. I love when they do the in memoriams. I always like, oh my gosh, that person passed away.
Well, we have somebody getting slapped this year.
Well, that was to this day. I think didn't you and I text when that
The
happened?
moment it happened.
The
We're
moment
like,
it
was
happened-
that fake or real?
It
was real.
It was real. And I could not, there was 20, 30 minutes for my brain to wrap my head around
Right.
what just happened.
That was so crazy.
That was the craziest
Because
thing
we were like
ever.
watching the reaction, Chris Rock's reaction.
Yeah,
Will Smith was
yeah.
still swearing at him. So I was like, oh, this is real. Like, this dude is pissed.
He was pissed. And because then I started thinking, like, if that was a promotional stunt, they did it too good.
Right.
And then I thought that couldn't have been real because Will Smith, that's not good for his career.
And then it ended up not being, he's like banned for like the
Oh,
Academy
I
for like
know.
20 years or
Yeah.
something. And then come to find out him and Jada actually aren't really married.
That whole right? Talk about some poor Will
Celebrities.
Smith.
I tell you what.
He was like every summer you got a good movie out of Will Smith,
All
you
right.
know? And now it's like,
And he's going back to Miami.
oh boy. So anyways, watch for those. And then number 10 is the most important thing
Yes.
to be prepared for 2024 is just to listen to,
The Oregon Files podcast.
it's just good advice.
Yep. Tune in for advice like this. If you want to learn about Giants, you want to learn about anything Oregon related, world related, pop culture, if you just want to have a random laugh, if you want to find out a little more about Dave Layton, tune in to the Oregon Files podcast.
Always have more Dave Layton. If you want to hear us mispronounce everything on
Many
earth,
things.
that's the way to do it.
And what a year.
What a year.
What a 2023. It went by really fast.
It's way too fast.
And I hope everyone's now prepared for 2024.
Well, hopefully we have some better Marvel movies or some better superhero movies in
Yeah.
2024. 2023, whoosh,
Yeah.
there's some whiffs there. A couple dad jokes. How about you? What do you got?
Nothing. You do it.
I can't use my laptop anymore because someone spilled apple juice on it. It was a cider attack.
Oh, no.
What do you call a snowman with a six-pack?
A snowman with a six-pack. I don't know.
An abominable snowman.
Okay. That's
was-
good.
yeah. This one I laughed at too much. I told it to my wife. She didn't think it was that funny. Okay. I'm not sure if I like eggnog or not. I guess you could call me agnostic. What would Simba, Timon, and Pumbaa say if they were Jewish?
L'chaim.
Hanukkah Matata. And then, Dad, which hand is it better to light the menorah with? And it said neither. It's best to light it with a candle.
Boom.
There we go.
Good advice.
There we go. All right. We're going to end today. Are we doing what, New Year's resolutions?
Yes.
All right.
I'm glad you reminded me. I already forgot. Do you do New Year's resolutions, and what is it?
Right? It's a great question. Yes and no, because you don't want to get discouraged yourself. So I always do like a fun one.
Right.
Like one year I did was to eat more cheesecake, and I stuck to it. For 2024, I'm going to do more baking of, it's all food related. So it's going to be baking more sweets or baking more stuff at home that I can enjoy. Because I found out now, like if I go to the store and buy a piece of cake, it's not the same as if I homemade it, right? And
it's time and effort.
And so then, of course, the Great British Baking Show, they always have stuff I've never heard of.
All right.
Like, have you heard of a banoffee?
No.
It's a banana toffee pie.
Oh my gosh.
That's what I said too. So I'm going to...
A banoffee?
Banoffee. And I have to try it. I have to make it. I have to try it.
I have to make it?
So it must be had. To do more home baking of random stuff I never tried before. How about you?
Definitely centered around, I don't specifically do New Year's resolutions.
Okay.
But definitely trying to make food that I've always wanted to make. One of them is gnocchi. I always wanted to try to make gnocchi.
Okay.
Jambalaya. Last year I made gumbo and it turned out pretty good,
Yeah.
but it's kind of all-day type process, so I wanted to make jambalaya next. And I really want to just focus more on goals and just kind of continue, the growth of the podcast, growth of myself, and just continue to support myself, family, and just be healthy and happy as 2024 rolls in. So that's kind of where I'm at.
That's a good way
set
to
the
be.
bar low and aim high.
There you go. I like it. I'm the same way. Definitely being more healthy. You know, you got to do this, especially as we're getting older.
Try not to stress too much about the little things.
You can't stress anymore.
Yeah.
I can't watch the news.
No,
It
God.
gets worked up.
God, stick to sports.
Yeah.
Even that stresses me out.
Elle, if people want to get a hold of us, how can they do that?
A couple ways. Oregon Files Podcast Yahoo is the email. And we get the community, we get some really cool suggestions on future shows, on comments on shows we've done through our Facebook page, through Instagram. A lot of awesome people reaching out. So keep reaching out. We appreciate all the suggestions, the comments.
Yes.
Really cool. If you want to listen to the show, obviously you are, but if you want to tell your family, your friends, your state representatives, go on YouTube. It's out there. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. You can even Google Oregon Files Podcast. It pops up. Tell Alexa, anywhere you get your podcasts, we're out there. And again, we just appreciate everyone listening and supporting the show. And here's to 2024.
Cheers.
Cheers.